Good afternoon, people. This is Mr. Gee. I've got trying to make another YouTube video to go along with what we've been talking about in math class this week. We've been dealing with three types of problems. One was working together. Another type of problem was a paycheck, and the last one was when you're left to work alone, finish the job alone. Um, what you've got to recognize about these problems, all these problems that we're doing, is we're just simply writing equivalent ratios. We take these equivalent ratios, we set them up to where they have the same denominator, we drop the denominators, and then it gives us a nice simple integer math problem to solve. And those are the general steps that we use on all these type of problems. Well, let's go ahead and get started here. This first problem is working together, and let's go ahead and read it. It says Vargas paints a house in 6 hours. Jules paints the same size of house in 8 hours. How many hours will it take both to paint the house? So they're basically, just like the problem says there, they're working together. So what you've got to realize is that we've got one person, Vargas, who paints a house in that many hours. Then we've got another person by the name of Jules. He paints the house in just a little bit less time, 2 hours more, not less. We're going to take this information and we're going to turn them both to ratios. One will be our numerator on all of them. Now, if I had 3 people, then I would have 3 ratios. If I had 4 people, I'd have 4 ratios. So our first ratio will be Vargas's rate. So that would be 1 over 6. Jules' rate is 1 over 8. And then somehow we're going to find out that when we combine those two rates together, we're going to get 1 over t. And t is the variable that we need to solve for. We know from the few weeks ago that I reviewed the idea of how to add fractions, and to be able to add fractions, we have to convert the denominators so the denominators are the same. To find the easiest way to find a denominator that will work, some people get stressed about the fact they have to find the lowest one. You don't need to find the lowest one, you just need to find one that works. So the easiest way to find one that works is just to multiply all the denominators together. So 6 times 8 is 48 times t, so the denominator that I want to use is 48t. So in essence, I'm going to rewrite all these three ratios with a denominator of 48t. So let's take 1 over 6. So if I have 1 over 6, well, what do I multiply 6 by to get 48t? Well, what do you see that's missing from the 6? Well, it's the 8t. So I'll take 8t, multiply it to the bottom and the top. Now the reason why that works is if I look at 8t over 8t, that's the same as 1. 1 times anything is that anything. So even though I'm changing the way 1/6 looks, it's still mathematically and algebraically it's still the same value. So I'm going to get 8t divided by 48t. Now that same principle I'll use to rewrite 1 over 8. So I've got 1 over 8. Well, 8 is missing the 6 and the t. So 6t to the top, 6t to the bottom. That is the same as 1. So I don't really change anything. 1 times 6t is 6t. 8 times 6t is 48t. So now I've got my equivalent denominator there. Now I just have to do it one more time with 1 over t. Well, it looks like I've got the 6 and the 8. I've already got the t, so let's see, I multiply it by 48 times over 48. And that gives me 48 over 48t. Oops, that needs to be 48t, not just 4t. Let me erase that real quick. So 48t. Okay, now that I've got rewritten all my terms, let's go over. There's the one that replaced 1/6. This is the one that replaces the 1/8, and this is the one that replaces the t. So I've got 8t over 48t plus 6t over 48t equals 48 over 48t. Now if you look across here, all our denominators are the same, and when all our denominators are the same, we can drop them. So my new equation, the one that I'm going to use to solve the problem with, is 8t plus 6t equals 48. Well, I've got some like terms here, don't I? Well, what are my like terms? Well, they're the ones that have the t. Those are my like terms, so I can add those two together. 8 plus 6 is 14, so that gives me 14t equals 48. Divide by 14 to each side. And so t ends up to be, take my calculator, divide 48 by 14, I get 3.42 hours. Well, let's suppose I want to change the 0.42 to hours, from hours to minutes. So let's just take 0.42, and how many minutes in an hour? There's 60. So that ends up to be 25.2 minutes. So how long does it take them to finish the job together if they work together, provided they work just as hard together as they do alone? Well, it'll take 3 hours and 25 minutes. Okay, so that's generally the type of working together problem. Some ideas to remember is the concept of multiplication by 1. Please don't forget that. You've got to write your equivalent fractions correctly. You can see that that's done right there. That's done right there. And that's done right there. The other thing to remember that's very, very vital is that once you've got a common denominator and they're all the same, is that you drop it and then you end up getting a simple equation to solve. So that's the end of this video. Remember, I promise you that if you do your homework, I don't assign a lot of it, maybe 4 to 5 problems a night, that if you do your homework, you're going to be happy in class, you're going to know what we're talking about, and that'll be a lot more enjoyable for you. I understand that a lot of you struggle with math, and that's okay. I struggle with math as well. Well, have a good evening, and thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.